Underwood full metal jacket ammunition for hunting in 9mm+P, 357 Magnum, and 357 SIG. So our 9mm is a 124 grain plus P rated at 1225 feet per second. Our 357 Magnum is a 125 grain full metal jacket rated at 1700 feet per second, but I believe they use a 6-inch barrel, so we're not going to get that. And then our 357 SIG, 125 grain full metal jacket rated at 1475 feet per second. So all of these are full metal jacket flat points, which are designed to penetrate really deep. 124 grain, 125, and 125. Very similar bullet weights overall. Our diameter of our 357 SIG and 9mm is 0.355. Our 357 Magnum is 0.357. So very fair, similar bullets here to test these in. So really what the stuff is marketed as is big game protection. Instead of using a hard cast, using a full metal jacket. And, you know, that makes a little bit of sense to me because they're not going to be quite as smoky, you know, and they're lighter bullet weights. You can probably be a little more effective with the 125 grain full metal jacket versus a hard cast of that similar weight. You know, a lot less smoky, and they'll probably penetrate hard barriers a little bit better too. So to test the 9mm and the 357 SIG, I'm using my Smith & Wesson M&P 2.0 and 2.09 and 2.040 with the 357 SIG barrel in it. And to test the 357 Magnum, my Smith & Wesson 686. 5-inch barrels here for our semi-auto, 4-inch for our revolver, but we actually have about the same overall size and barrel travel, because you can line up the chamber there with the back of the cylinder on the revolver. Pretty similar. You actually have a little bit more barrel travel with this 4-inch revolver versus a 5-inch semi-auto, but you do have some cylinder gap gas loss a little bit there with the revolver. So very fair overall, in my opinion. So we're going to go through the chronograph, see what kind of velocity and accuracy we get at the same time. And then, as some of you might have guessed it, my big dangerous animal ballistic test here. So I have about 4.5 feet of ballistics gel here, and we should be able to catch all these. So we have our first part here with a thick layer of carpet to represent animal hide. Then we have 6 inches of clear ballistics to represent going through the first part of the animal, and this is about a half representation of mammalian flesh. So this is really like going through 3 inches of an animal. Then we have a 1/2 inch of medium density fiberboard, which is double what I normally use in my regular test, and then a whole bunch of ballistics gel up to I want to say 54 inches. And then we have, and just in case they go through all the way, I have my old and not yet improved blanky backstop to hopefully catch these. If they go that far, they shouldn't though. And then after that, I am going to do some tests, some accuracy drills. I think I'm going to do 25 yards and 75 yards to kind of see first, you know, a dangerous animal scenario where maybe something's coming at me, and then see how fast I can hit that steel from 25 yards. And I'll back up and do some slow fire from 75 yards. So let's get started with this test. All right, first up, our 9mm. We are rated at 1225 feet per second. I am about 5 yards from that target. Let's see how close we get to 1225 feet per second with our 9mm here. $12.79, $12.72, $12.47, $12.60, $12.71. So that's some spicy 9mm for sure. Above rated velocity. Now our 357 Magnum, we're rated at 1700 feet per second. There's no way we're going to get that from this 4-inch revolver. Well, let's see what we actually get here. $15.08, that's got some flash. $14.35, $14.00, $13.87, $13.88. They're kind of creeping out a little bit. I don't think they're creeping out, but that's my first thought. Maybe they're creeping out a little bit because our velocity keeps dropping. I don't think they are though. One more. 1409. So not as consistent as what I'd like to see. Case ejection for something that hot though is very good. I'm impressed with that. And you know, even though it's not very close to rated velocity, that's still a lot of velocity. Our 357 SIG, you know, that probably is rated through a barrel close to this. and we were rated at 1475 feet per second. So our rating is 250 feet per second faster than the 9mm with a 1 grain heavier bullet. So let's see how close we get to that 1475 feet per second. 1568, wow. 1559, 1562, 1554, 1565. Way more consistent and above the 357 Magnum with like no flash, as where the 357 had massive flash. That's had a lot less recoil too. So I'm always taken aback when I shoot 357 SIG how much power there is there for how little recoil there is, because it's a very efficient cartridge. The 357 Magnum is a more powerful cartridge. If you put it into a carbine, it would definitely outperform this, but you're losing a good half of your power going to a 4-inch revolver versus its potential. So you're still dealing with all that recoil of a more powerful cartridge, but you're losing a bunch. As we're with this, you're keeping most of that power, and you know, it's less powerful overall, so you have less recoil. So let's hit our Ballistics gel block and see how these all compare. All right, our big dangerous animal ballistic pack here. I'm going to do a couple shots of each caliber. I think that makes the most sense. Do a couple shots of 9mm, go and look at what we got, and then move on. So a thick layer of carpet, 6 inches of clear ballistics, a full 1/2 inch medium density fiberboard. Let's see what our 9mm does. Let's go take a look. All right, so it looks like one went out of that block, and that's fine. That's kind of why I was taking 2 shots, but it looks like it would have went out of that block right about where the other one stopped anyways. And I don't see that bullet laying anywhere, so I don't know where the other one went, but we got a whole bunch of damage going. That's a ton of damage in this first part here. That's a lot more than what you see, a lot more than what you see if you were just going to take some target 9mm and shoot that. You would see nothing like this. It would just be a very thin straight line. So that flat point is imparting a whole bunch of damage in there. And when we get to here, that could indicate tumbling, but I don't think it does, because that bullet is nose forward. I just don't think that that would tumble, you know, and still go that deep. But it just caused a way more damage than what you would think that would cause. And our penetration, we were right here at about 30.5 inches. So considering that we went through a 1/2 inch of medium density fiberboard, which, you know, that's hard for stuff to defeat a lot of times. You know, we're talking 30.5 inches. That's still a lot for a 9mm. So let's hit this with our 357 mag and see how that compares. All right, 357 Magnum. Let's see what this does. Let's go take a look at that. All right, so there's the same amount of damage going on, and it does look like both the bullets are backwards with our 357 Magnum. It's possible that right here in this top one here that we went through part of the other track, but the second shot is actually less penetration, which definitely did not hit another track there. So what we got going on with our first shot of 357 is about 29 3/4. Our other shot here is about 28 3/4. So a little bit less than our 9mm. And you know, a lot of people say that doesn't make sense, but part of it is when you hit something and you have a lot more energy there, what will happen is you kind of get more resistance. So it doesn't want to go quite as deep. It wants to dump a little more energy and have more resistance doing that. But overall, still pretty good there. So let's hit this with our 357 SIG and see how that does. All right, 357 SIG, by far the most powerful cartridge here. Let's see what I get with this. All right, let me do it a couple more times. I thought something weird like that was going to happen. It arced kind of down, kind of weird. Let's go take a look. All right, so the 357 SIG is the only cartridge here that did a couple different things. One, there's like a whole bunch of carpet and burn marks in this first 3-inch, and this whole thing moved, which is not something that the other ones did. Can't really tell much from this other than that did a pretty good job at getting destroyed. I'll put this back away. Our first 357 SIG, it looks like it actually is up here under the block, and yeah, it hit the bottom of the shelf and skidded along and then landed up there. So that's not true penetration with those, but I'm having a hard time seeing where these are at. I got 5 bullets in there. I took 7 shots. I don't see the other 357 SIG, I don't think. That's interesting. Maybe it's this one here, and then the other one is here, I think. Interesting. I'm just going to take this number here because I'm not 100% sure. But what we got going on here is it definitely outdid the 9mm, and we're at about 32.5 inches of penetration. So a lot of penetration. This not as much as what I was thinking I was going to see, because I'm so used to hard cast when I do this test being way up here. So not as much penetration as hard cast, but definitely easier to shoot because it's less smoky. It just feels more like a normal cartridge. But our 9mm is very surprising. So obviously, looking at all of this, the one that you get the least out of, even though it's fantastically powerful, that 357 Magnum, you kind of get the least out of it because, you know, with a 125 grain, it's a great bullet weight if you're talking a jacketed hollow point. But when you're talking a solid bullet, your 357 Magnum is going to have a lot more advantages with like a 158 grain to go real deep. So we got the least amount of penetration with the 357 Magnum. Our 9mm got the second most amount, or second least amount, however you look at it. And part of that's because 9mm doesn't usually have a ton of energy. It's just enough that it doesn't have all that extra resistance, so it tends to want to slip through. Our 357 SIG had everything. It had more power than the 357 Magnum, and it, you know, that just that extra power was enough to make it push a lot deeper here. So at the end of the day, all of these are very, very similar, but I would say our 357 SIG stands out as being better than the other two. So interesting. So let's pull some of these out of the block, take a close-up look at them, and then I'll shoot our steel, see what kind of accuracy I get on steel. All right, so here's a close-up look at these bullets. You're probably going to learn the least from this because they are all so extremely similar. I had a very hard time telling them apart, and still kind of do. They all look the same to me. Our 9mm are these two. Our 357s are right here, and then our 357 SIG. So 357 Mag, 357 SIG. Very similar overall. Not a whole lot going on here with these, except the nose did dimple in just a little bit, but there's definitely a lot less deformation of those bullets than what I would have expected, especially with the 357 Mag and SIG, because these are hitting with a lot of power. You would think that you might get a little bit more deformation. 357 SIG here. Very thick jackets, so you can tell by looking at those jackets. They're not playing around with that. There's more jacket there than on a typical bullet. So you have a very, very hard bullet. A lot of full metal jackets are just barely any lead or copper around that lead. But these all have a very significantly thick jacket. So yes, these are $1 a round for the 357 SIG anyways. And I think the 357 Magnum. I think the 9mm is a little bit cheaper. But you're kind of getting what you're paying for, because you're getting a pretty high quality product with all that copper on there. It made it deform a lot less than what a normal full metal jacket flat point may have. So very impressive overall by looking at these. You can't tell a whole lot by looking at these, you know, as far as any deformation, but you can tell that they are a very high quality product. So let's a close-up look at those. All right, 25 yards from the target, kind of my dangerous animal drill here. So I'm just going to line up my sights, get a nice sight picture, which is probably more luxury than I'd have in the real world situation. But let's just say I had the, you know, best scenario going on, and I had some sights lined up, and the animal stayed at 25 yards. See what I can do with our 9mm here. See how quick I can land these on target. Alright, that shoots like pretty much like a normal 9mm. There's not really a whole lot of recoil going on. Now this, we had a ton of flash. We'll see what happens with this. 357 Magnum. Alright, so I think I'm just shooting a little bit to the right today. I lined those sights back up, but I think maybe my back sight just wasn't quite lined up enough. But I'm trying to just do it as fast as I think I can. And I didn't really correct that, but we went a little bit to the left there. Kind of hard to shoot. 357 SIG. See what I can do with that. All right. Not great accuracy, but that flash isn't there, so I was able to get my sight acquisition back down on target. That was another thing with the 357 mag. It's like you lose your sights completely even in the day. There's so much flash with that. So let me back it up and do kind of a hunting scenario and see how these all compare. All right, 75 yards from the target, kind of our hunting scenario. I know this isn't going to be very much like hunting. Realistically, I've hunted before, and we're not going to be, standing up and shooting with a handgun usually, but kind of SHTF situation. You might need to take something, and you have kind of your animal defense setup going on with your handgun, and you think you can get what you want to get there with your handgun. So I'm going to fire kind of slow, but not, super slow. I'm not going to try to be super realistic here, but let's just see what kind of accuracy I get from 75 yards here with our 9mm. All right, so not too bad with that. Now our 357 Magnum here. I think I brought my reload. Maybe I didn't. Let me go get my reload. I'll be right back. All right, 357 Magnum. I'm gonna do some single action and some double action and see how these things do for me. So let me do some single action shots. I'm not sure if that's what I would do if I was hunting, just because I've been shooting double action for so long. I'm sometimes more accurate with it, but I know a lot of people are gonna shoot single action. Let's see how I can do with this. 357 Magnum. All right, I think I missed that first shot. Try double action. I was doing kind of okay. Then I just started letting them go and definitely missed those. So I could have done a lot better if I would have tried a little bit harder there. The ammo itself was very accurate. It's me that wasn't. 357 SIG, the most powerful cartridge here, at least in their respective platforms. Let's see how I can do with that 357 SIG. right, so yeah, I started missing quite a bit with this, which I wasn't expecting, and I also got a feed jam on this on the feed ramp. Wasn't expecting that. Wasn't too bad. Was able to clear it, but for whatever reason, I was just not as accurate with that as what I was with the other two. But overall, our 9mm I was the most accurate with. That could have to do with me flinching less, and it probably is. And also, malfunctions. I've never had a malfunction on M&P 9. I've had it for almost 4 years. I've never had a single malfunction. And that gives me a sense of confidence, and I think that's why I'm usually a little bit better with it versus some of my other guns. I kind of once in a while anticipate with 40 and 357 SIG. I haven't got very many malfunctions. I had this 40 for about same time I got the 9mm about 4 years ago. I've had probably like 6 malfunctions in it over the past 6 years, or 4 years. 6 malfunctions in the past 4 years, and you know, and that's not too bad consider I'm using a lot of different hollow points. I'm switching back and forth between 357 SIG, 40, all different kinds of ammo. That's not bad overall. So I think that's why I'm better with the 9mm. But anyways, I would say if I had to, I hate to do this, if I had to pick one of these right now to be my big dangerous animal protection cartridge, I might pick the 9mm. I hate to say that because you guys know I'm not a huge fan. But the fact that, you know, for me it was more accurate, I could get follow-up shots faster, and it pretty much went to the same depths as the 357 Magnum. You know, for what you're getting out of it, I would say you're getting the most out of that system there. The next one I would choose would be the 357 SIG. Obviously, we have a lot better terminal ballistics and power. It is significantly more powerful than that 9mm, significantly more. And it was more powerful than this 357 Magnum out of this revolver. So I might actually say that might be the cartridge I would choose. It would depend on what I need it for. Like if I was going to Alaska or something and maybe brown bears were a thing that I had to worry about, well, I probably would pick this 357 SIG versus that 9mm. Now, here in Michigan, you know, sometimes there's black bears. There's been reported sightings of cougars, and those can be very dangerous. You know, with that type of dangerous animal, you know, I'm not really going to need to step it up to the 357 SIG, so I probably would choose the 9mm. Now, the 357 Magnum, don't get me wrong, that's a fantastic cartridge. If we did this test with just that 357 Magnum, I would tell you that's fantastic. We didn't have that great of a velocity consistency, but it was still more powerful than, you know, it was about as powerful as a typical 357 Magnum, and it's a flat nose full metal jacket, and it went real deep. So you can do no wrong by getting that 357 Magnum. But compared to, you know, these other two, the disadvantages that come along with that 357 Magnum, more recoil, significantly more muzzle flash. Actually got some unburnt powder hitting my eye somehow through my glasses while I was just doing a 75-yard shooting. That's kind of why I missed the rest of those 357s. I'm kind of like wincing a little bit, like, how did that happen? Why did that happen? Happened because there's a ton of flash and stuff coming out. So I would not pick that. I would pick it if it's all I had. No doubt, it's better than a lot of options. But between all three of these, I'm going to say our 357 SIG and our 9mm both are really, really fantastic. I would say those are kind of tied. You know, our 357 SIG has more power. Our 9mm has more shootability and reliability. Very good. And then our 357 Magnum. So all of them did pretty well here. But I am thoroughly impressed with the semi-auto cartridges in this test. So interesting test. That's what you get today. So as always, comment, share, and like, and thanks for watching.